Happy Saturday. I'm running alone today. Sean is working. And I typically run alone during the week for my fast miles and run with Blaine and Logan on Tuesdays and Thursdays for some slow miles. And I got a message from my good friend Curtis as I was doing my fast miles. You wouldn't have to run so much or to have a six-pack if you just lifted weights. And like me, he's a big fucking meathead. And so let's jump into that, shall we? I was a certified fitness trainer, and I didn't maintain my certification anymore because I got tired of giving them $150 every year for no reason, for them to tell me that I still have my certification. It's kind of a funny thing that we do, isn't it? Yeah. What makes you qualified? Well, I give this company money, and they tell me that I'm good enough to tell you what to do. Makes me the expert. How do you know? I went to school for a very long time. How much money did you give that school? Lots. Okay, you know what you're talking about. Which is interesting because I have now been training chiropractors without sending them to school for 8 years and having them spend $300,000. And objectively, with measuring health outcomes, they're better healers. So there's a lot to dive into that one, but let's dive into running today if we could. And run in your mouth. The approaches I have with health in regard to being a doctor, being a chiropractor, being a father, being a husband, being an educator is balanced in two parts, science and scripture. I took this, really it was ingrained in this response during the pandemic because the medical community showed its complete and utter incompetence and ultimately either incompetence or untrustworthiness. So they couldn't be followed anymore. And so I had to make decisions based on being a follower of Christ and someone who appreciates the scientific process. So I look at the exercise of our body, and everyone knows exercise is good for you, so any movement is good. But let's talk about good, better, best. In the Bible, it talks about the Garden of Eden and how, pretty much that's when we are in perfect commune with God, perfect health. Walk around naked, no shame, right? And, I would say that's a good goal to have. Is be so happy with your physical body that you can walk around naked, no shame. And so, goal number one. If someone needs inspiration on whether or not to do something more than what they're doing now, turn all the lights on in your house, get in front of a mirror, take off all your clothes, and then look at yourself. Let that motivate you a little bit. So, then you look at the digression of the human species, the knowledge of good versus evil, simply pointing to the activation of the amygdala, which is our part of our brain that gets its mouth running when we're inundated in a stressful situation or we perceive something to be bad. That's all that truth is looking at. Is this duality within our brain. We have the reptilian center of our brain.
Block 2, 10:06.
That then gets running. Is this good? Is this bad? Is this safe? Am I safe? And if that sucker's running, your body is actively killing yourself. It's creating energy via adrenaline, cortisol, stress hormones that need to be used. Okay, so now we're getting somewhere. So A, is your brain running its mouth to you? Just know you are actively killing yourself. Stop doing that. So how do you actively stop killing yourself? You have to use that energy. So then, there's a book, Born to Run, that's a good read and also really highly based in science. Not so much in scripture, but talks about how our species, the reason why we survived is because we have these big old butt muscles that keep us upright. And then we have the ability to locomote long distances. And it talks about early people would literally run their prey to death. That's how we survived compared to the other human species, is that we could keep animals moving, because this is a unique thing to humans. We can cool ourselves while we move. And I don't want to speak incorrectly, but I'm pretty sure like we're the only species that can do that. So what these early people would do is in tribes, they would simply move animals and keep them moving until they would overheat and die, collapse. And it takes about 3 hours to do that. And which is interesting because the person like in a fitness level of like someone who's in good shape is someone that can run a marathon in 3 hours. And yeah, I'm aware that there's the story of the first person who ran a marathon that ran 26 miles and they died at the end. Again, one of those stories that people are like, that's why running marathons is stupid. Pretty sure medicine just made that story up. Like everything else they make up in order to take our money and provide no outcome of success other than, oh, we didn't let you die, as they actively taught us to kill ourselves. So, think about what kind of movement is best for the body as far as dissipating that energy. It would be long distance running. And the very next thing people say was, oh, I hate running. Yeah, me too. How do you feel about killing yourself? Because without dissipating that stress response, that's what your body's doing. It's actively shutting down, breaking down, and killing yourself. So, well, how do we then further dive into understanding this process to overcome this feeling of, God, running sucks. Why should I do it? Because just the knowledge your body is shutting down and killing itself isn't enough. No way. No, we need something stronger than that, right? And unless someone's immediately about to jump off a cliff in front of us, we don't have to do anything about it. I'm just gonna say, live your life. YOLO. Which, again, it's like one of those things where I don't know if anyone can point to YOLO being a better motivator than you actually only die once. And what we do in between then is either A, have full life or not. So let's break down the other source of energy that we get within our body, which comes from the substantia nigra, or dopamine. And dopamine is our driver for a couple things: reproduction and food and security. So any system that is challenged, that falls short and is able to heal, then is made stronger. Morning. So if you're a person who has a brain and you're Homo sapien, regardless of what you identify with, your brain, your substantia nigra, is driving you for reproduction, food, and security. Okay? Okay, so let's say let's say you are around a bunch of beautiful women and you do not reproduce with one of those women. Your brain upregulates the dopamine production, gets stronger. What if you do it the next day? What if you do it the next day? What if you do it the next day? Well, what ends up happening is dopamine gives us the energy, but also pleasure in activity. But what do we have now, though? What we have now is we can, and I can't speak for women's dopamine response because I don't have any personal experience with that because I'm not a woman, but I can speak to men's. Like what we have now is we have the ability to look at naked women always with technology. It doesn't take any effort. And then we have the ability to then self pleasure, right? It doesn't take any effort. So now what happens to that system? It becomes weaker, becomes atrophied. So now let's talk about how the running has to do with this. Again, think back, our species, the reason why we survived is because we were able to run our prey to death. That is ingrained within our nervous system. So when you run yourself to exhaustion in a fasted state, your brain says, we need to produce more dopamine. We need to become better at this in order to then survive. And then with that, you become stronger. So and again, this isn't like a complex algorithm. You think about it, again, you go back to basic weightlifting. You do bicep curls until you can't do them anymore. Work it to failure. Your biceps get stronger. Now, where I struggle and where I don't feel inclined to be in a gym for hours is I have a hard time understanding the balanced equation that I use for my recommendation of science and scripture. Because evolutionarily, we did not have strength because we could pick up something heavy 10 times. In fact, I don't know. I don't understand where it would ever be a useful skill, survival-wise. Some would say, oh, okay, what about, if you killed an animal, you'd have to carry it back. Well, yeah, that's true, but again, studying the early tribes, they would have had a group of people. So it would have been cut up and then distributed within the people. Well, what about being, a warrior? Again, that's a whole other thing. I was talking to Blaine the other day, and he used to be in pretty good shape. He's a self-proclaimed lazy fat fuck now, but he used to be in really good shape when he was in high school. And he said he would just do cardio.
Lap 3.
Hours and hours of cardio, to compete in pole vault. So even though pole vault itself didn't take a lot of cardio, at events he would be able to go over and over and over before getting tired, where everyone else would burn out because they only trained for the short distances. So I would say the argument for being able to lift heavy, to be a warrior, I would say, well, I would ask the question, who are you fighting? Because if your main motivation is to be a warrior, who are you fighting? And how are you fighting that person? Because many of the martial arts are trained movement patterns, and even yoga bases are made to move the body differently, and actually that movement then is healing to the brain. We've been playing around with the Mindy in the office and trying to figure out ways to optimize people's healing process, because getting adjusted turns on the prefrontal cortex, stimulates the vagus nerve, but then that pathway needs to be strengthened, and running long distance does it. And so it's a matter of like getting enough things, or we could give people tools that they can have on their own. Like, so for example, if you know holding whatever pose for a minute throughout the course of the day, every hour stimulates the healing center of your brain measurably, start doing that, start producing more dopamine, and then have the ability to then make the next step. I can appreciate that everyone is so weak right now that the idea of just going out and running is overwhelming. And yes, when I said weak, I mean weak. There's no shame in that. In fact, the only way to get stronger is by being weak. That's the vicious cycle. So, Curtis, if you're watching this, I'm not going to become a meathead that sits in a room with a bunch of other men grunting as they lift their heavy weight a couple times in order to have big muscles that will eventually get saggy for no real outcome other than get a testosterone hit for being around a bunch of meatheads. So the conclusion of this talk is understanding one simple thing. When you feel bad about your life, so for example, let's say you are you're in sales, or you're trying to get a promotion at your job, and you're trying, and you're failing, and you feel like a loser because you are, and you're losing. If you can go then move your body and dissipate that stress response, it will make you feel better, but not good. But then when you heal, that will strengthen that part of your brain to give you more energy, more joy, and more likely opportunity for success. The more you feel like a loser, the more intensely you feel negative, the more of a benefit you will get from it. You have to become weak or become strong. But what do we do instead? This person has depression. They're suicidal. Now wanting to rapidly commit suicide, or more urgently. Their body's already killing itself. They've been suicidal for years. Because again, if you have imbalance within your nervous system, your body is actively killing itself. That's why people are getting older so much quicker. Self-suicide. So, if you are someone who has depression, you go to your medical doctor, or you talk to your friends, what do they say? Oh, take this thing. Take this drug, take this supplement, and that will, quote unquote, make you feel better. And all we do is then stop the development of the prefrontal cortex and the substantia nigra. Look at stats right now on how young people are getting Parkinson's now. Parkinson's is a lack of the ability to produce dopamine. It ends up with these resting tremors, or a lack of energy to initiate or continue sustained movement. So the question I have, would you rather feel bad in order to then be better, or would you rather feel better to then be bad. This is yours. So, do I run so I can have a six-pack? No. I run so I can be better. Six-pack is just the benefit of it. And with understanding the brain, again, in order to get better, you have to push the point to get bad. You feel bad. And so when I run with Blaine and Logan, it feels better. I'm running slow. They're running fast. I mean, Blaine's running farther than he has in his entire life. And he's running faster than he has in over a decade. But for me, it's easy. It feels good. It feels good to do easy things. But that just means I gotta do harder things by myself. So, do I wish I had other people to run with more consistently? Yes. Hence this message. Get to work.